Woo, woo, woo. Hello there, I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com and welcome to How They Should Have Made, where I look back at infamous Hollywood missed opportunities and talk about how I would make them differently because I'm a smartass. This time around, Spider-Man 3. Oh, hang on a second. Spider-Man 3. Now, a lot of people hate this film and theatricalize how much they hate it, but it's not that bad. It has a lot more charm and character than the Andrew Garfield movies. But after Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 were f***ing beautiful, Spider-Man 3 did feel like a big step down. And the problems with that were, well, for starters, there were way too many characters and plot lines. Characters like George Stacy, Gwen Stacy especially did nothing. She was just a paper-thin torture device that Peter used to hurt Mary Jane. She was only actually around because they thought Kirsten Dunst wasn't going to sign up for Spider-Man 4, which never actually happened. You've got all the villains. You got Sandman, Eddie Brock, Emo Goblin, Peter's dark side. They're all there. Most of them have to be introduced from scratch and they're all jostling for attention. In the end, it creates a bloated, disjointed mess that doesn't really make you feel a whole lot, which is a shame because Spider-Man 1 and 2 made you feel so much joy, exhilaration, and yeah, they're camp, but they're just so earnest. And like I said, this movie isn't a total shitbox, but there is a great movie in there somewhere, and you just have to kind of scrape away all the excess fat to find it. And I can do it better. So the big improvement is make Harry Osborn Venom. It's so obvious. It's right there. You're talking about the dark side of Spider-Man. Harry Osborn's already there. He already hates Peter. Their grievances have been building for 2 films. You can build up the evil suit, then Harry's there, put Harry in the evil suit, 2 Spider-Mans. It rounds off everything thematically. It's just, I can't believe they went with Topher Grace. This guy. I'm Venom. I'm go get you. So we start the film with Mary Jane. She is worried about the escalation that's been happening from Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2 to Spider-Man 3. She wakes up and finds a bloody, torn up Spider-Man standing in her doorway. He's been out on patrol, his suit is shredded, yeah, he's injured, but he initially doesn't want Mary Jane's help. He wants to do this on his own. Like, she found out about him, he doesn't want to put her at risk. This is his burden to carry. She cleans him up, she takes him to the roof, she cleans up his wounds under the stars. Aww. He's got a ring and it looks like he's about to propose, but he doesn't because they actually get into a little bit of an argument. MJ's worried that being Spider-Man is going to kill Peter, that he takes it all on himself. And Peter gets frustrated, he gets flustered. He's like, well, I have to do this. I have to do this for the city. I made a promise to Uncle Ben. And she asks, at what point has Peter been responsible enough? When does duty become an obsession? And using that transition, we cut to Harry Osborn, who is walking around an old Oscorp laboratory. Now, all the laboratories that Oscorp used to own are slowly becoming disused and abandoned because Harry doesn't want to take over his father's mantle and the business is falling apart. He doesn't want to become his father, he just wants to kill Peter Parker. So Harry's walking around this laboratory with his butler. Now, his butler's saying stuff like, well, I certainly know what your father would have done if he was in this situation. You know, if he hadn't been murdered by Spider-Man. Guilt trip. Harry says, yes, I know the reason why he's there is to pick up this new goblin tech that will help him defeat Spider-Man once and for all. And as he picks it up, he passes a tank with black liquid in it. Project Venom. Yes, the symbiote is an alien, which might piss off some comics fans, but grow up, nerds! What am I doing? Instead, the symbiote is part of Norman Osborn's legacy. So everything from film 1, film 2, it's coming back in film 3. It feels like it belongs here, like it's always been here. Peter goes to visit Aunt May and he finds her there with a man, and initially this angers Peter because how dare Aunt May get herself a bit of trim. The suitor leaves and her and Peter talk about Uncle Ben and what his memory means. And she says, you mustn't let Uncle Ben's memory become a burden. That fits into the whole, is being Spider-Man dangerous? Remember, Peter, we all need family, not ghosts. Next day, a good old-fashioned bank robbery, because bank robberies in the Spider-Man universe are fun as shit. This time, it's the Vulture, you know, the guy that Sam Raimi initially wanted to be in the film. Now, you don't have to give the Vulture a backstory. He's an old dude with wings. That's pretty much it, and he likes robbing banks. So the Vulture is there, and Spider-Man defeats him. Again, Spider-Man is taken to his limit. Again, his suit gets cut up. He's bleeding, but he manages to web the Vulture to a lamppost. You know, the classic. Spider-Man is out of breath. He's run ragged. He's in a bad way. And he's talking to a policeman. The policeman says, look, we appreciate what you do, but not everyone trusts you on the force. And again, this annoys Peter Parker. He's quicker to anger these days because he's feeling the strain of being Spider-Man. The policeman says, not everyone on the force trusts you because you act outside the law. And Peter snaps, there is no law for what I can do. And then Emo Goblin attacks. So Harry Osborn, as the Goblin, goes after Peter. You knew this was coming, Pete. I didn't kill your father. They fight around the city, at one point crashing into the laboratory that Harry was in earlier, the Oscorp one. At one point, the engagement ring, which Peter has kept tied around his neck for safekeeping, that flies out and Harry Osborn catches it and he says, you took who I loved, implying that he's going to take someone that Peter loves, and Peter flies into a rage. You know, the proper Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. No! He just starts battering Harry, and during the rage fight, Peter gets thrown into the tank filled with black liquid. The black suit starts to grow on him during this rage fight and he gets more powerful. He's able to snap Harry's new glider with his bare hands. He starts just beating on Harry and you see the black suit grow up his arm as he does it. You know, the darkness is taking over. It's pretty on the nose. So it looks like Peter's about to cripple Harry when the butler shows up and he looks down and thinks, oh gosh, what have I done? And he thwips away, leaving the butler to take care of the bloodied and unconscious Harry Osborn. Peter retreats to a rooftop to examine this new black suit. Where did this come from? The power feels good. He sees that the black suit heals itself from all wear and tear, and when he gets home after he takes it off, he finds that the black suit has healed some of his injuries, because that's what it was being designed for by Oscorp, a sort of body armor that protects soldiers in the field. So Peter's very happy. He feels fitter than he has in months. He grabs MJ, takes her to the bedroom, and they do awful things behind closed doors as the camera pans down to the black suit, which shimmers slightly. So we have the middle of the film chunk with Peter getting changed by the black suit. Like, it's stronger, it's more powerful, it keeps him healthy, but it also feeds off of his frustrations, making him more egocentric, more self-obsessed, and quicker to anger, and his temper is getting worse. Montage of him dispatching criminals with ease, breaking arms, going further than Spider-Man has previously, but because he's fighting crime with a high level of effectiveness, the city love him, and he loves that. Well, everyone except J. Jonah Jameson, who keeps branding him a menace, so much so that Peter throws a postbox through his window. You know, it's a standard athlete on drugs story template. And during all of this, Harry Osborn is being kept alive by his butler in the Oscorp laboratories. He's in a coma and he's hooked up to a life support machine. So a couple of things you should definitely keep from the original movie for the middle section. This may be controversial, but I think you should keep the bit where Peter Parker turns into a boy. You know, the emo kind of woo. Because as internet commenters like, for example, Movie Bob have pointed out, Movie Bob's great, by the way, go and watch all of his videos. This is not Peter Parker being cool. This is Peter Parker, under the influence of the suit, doing what he thinks cool is. And Peter Parker's a nerd, so it's awful. And it should be awful. Because yeah, he's a posturing dick. We should hate the suit. I mean, he doesn't have to do the full My Chemical Romance haircut with the panda eyes, and, you know, maybe he doesn't have to sing a jazz number. But this stuff, I think that's pretty funny. Also, keep the restaurant proposal scene, because that's one of the best scenes in the entire franchise. If anything, you can make that scene more dramatic. Start it as comedy, but as it looks like he's about to propose, once again, it ends in an argument. Because she presses him, what's happened to Harry? What's happened to Harry? I want to move out the city. This city's dangerous. He turns a table over in frustration, saying, you should want me, not Harry. And then in the wreckage of the restaurant table, she sees the engagement ring. She looks at Peter, the dick, and she simply says, no, and leaves. So we're almost at Peter's lowest point here. He is bubbling with rage in this restaurant, and then he hears sirens in the distance. Oh, criminals, you have picked a very bad time to f*** up. And it's the Vulture again. Peter Parker goes after him with renewed vigor. He beats the Vulture to within an inch of his life. He smashes the man's bird helmet, and then under the helmet we can see the Vulture is the same man who was trying to court Aunt May. We get flashbacks. He's a wealthy suitor. Where's he getting all this money from? Turns out he's been robbing banks to try and court Aunt May. He's just an old man inside that suit. Peter didn't realize he was an old man. But seeing that he's the man who's trying to get cozy with Aunt May, possibly put her in danger, this pushes Peter further over the edge, and he savagely beats up the Vulture to the point where the Vulture, his wings have been broken off and he's left panting on a rooftop. And in the end, the Vulture has a heart attack and dies. Peter didn't murder him, he didn't beat him to death, but his recklessness, his carelessness, his selfishness has led to the death of another old man. Sure, he was the dark side of Uncle Ben, but Peter is here again. He goes to Aunt May to confess everything he's done. He's at his lowest point. Mary Jane is there and he confesses to both of them. And Aunt May's like, wait, what are you talking about? What's going on? And Peter Parker reveals himself as Spider-Man. So Mary Jane now knows, and Aunt May knows. And Aunt May says, I knew. Of course I knew, Peter. Because remember that scene in Amazing Spider-Man 2 where they're sorting through rubbish and she does Every Boy Needs a Hero? He wonders where Spider-Man's gone. And she looks at Peter like, I f***ing know you're Spider-Man, mate. Maybe you should be Spider-Man again. So Peter is accepted. He's within the bosom of his family. Aunt May says, I'm so proud of the man you become. And Peter says, the man I used to be and the man I could be again. So it's set in Peter's mind. He is getting rid of the suit. So Peter's getting rid of the suit, he returns to the Oscorp laboratory and he's trying to rip it off, but it's like a monster movie, you know, the thing that Sam Raimi does really well. It's struggling at his face and he's trying to rip it off. Then he finds out that the symbiote suit is vulnerable to fire, not noise. In the comics, the suit's vulnerable to both, and I think fire is probably going to be more dramatic in this case than sound. So Peter is in the lab and he uses his science brain to create a controlled explosion that frees him from the suit, you know, being cleansed by fire. Purgatory reference. The suit falls off him and slips through a crack in the floor, damage as a result of the fight that Goblin and Peter had previously had. And the suit falls to where Harry is recuperating. So a little blob of it lands on his pinky, his unconscious pinky, and it just starts to grow on him. The black takes over every part of his body, and just as it's about to cover his head, his eyes open and he shouts, Parker. Peter, who's found some old clothes in the lab, you know, so he's not naked. So he hears this, he looks down and he sees Harry becoming Venom, etc. You know, rah, rah. This is my job. Harry is having a fit, his sudden rush of memories of his dead father. They're all being corrupted by the suit. The black poison is seeping in and changing everything. The butler rushes to Harry's aid. Harry kills him in a blind fury. He screams for Peter and he jumps up through the ceiling and he grabs Peter and they have another fight. This time Peter is hopelessly outmatched. Venom, with Harry inside, smashes Peter around the laboratory and pins him under a load of wreckage. Peter cannot move. At this point, Venom could kill Peter Parker, but he decides, with his horrible Venom thoughts now in his head, no, I am going to take everything from you, starting with your legacy. He leaves Peter in the lab under the wreckage and forces him to be awake, conscious, and listening as he thwips out to the city and starts causing carnage. Carnage? Do you get it? Because there's like it becomes carnage. I'm a nerd now. So evil Spider-Man swinging around the city, picking up cars, throwing them through buildings. Everyone's like, Omg, Spider-Man, why are you being a dick? The newspaper outlets are like, Spider-Man's gone mental. All the newspaper guys, apart from J. Jonah Jameson, who watches the carnage from his office and says, almost to himself, that's not him. Aunt May and MJ see what's happening and are like, Peter, Jesus, what are you doing? And they rush off to try and stop him. And all the while, Peter Parker is trapped under this wreckage in the labs. And then we have a callback to that f***ing great scene in Spider-Man 2 between Peter Parker and Uncle Ben in the car. So they're there again, they're in the car, Peter saying, I failed being Spider-Man. And Uncle Ben says, last time we were here, you didn't take my hand. Uncle Ben tells Peter that where he went wrong was thinking that he has to do everything by himself. He has to carry the guilt of Uncle Ben's death by himself. And Ben doesn't want that. He says, what you can do, Spider-Man, he is this city at its best. You are Aunt May, MJ, everyone you love, everyone whose lives you make better. Use us, use all of us to help you, even me. And he offers his hand again. And this time, Peter takes it. And in the labs, something switches behind his eyes, and he is able, just able, to lift himself from the wreckage, the iconic Spider-Man carrying rubble shot from the comics. So when Spider-Man jumps away, evil Spider-Man is doing stuff in the city when good Spider-Man shows up. Hooray! A battle between light and dark. Good Spider-Man, bad Spider-Man, thematically, it all fits. Everyone realizes that Venom is not the real Spider-Man and they turn on him. The city pelts him with rubbish from rooftops. And Peter Parker realizes, this city is behind me. We are all Spider-Man. Except me, I'm Spider-Man. But you get it. You get it. Spider-Man has Venom beaten, where he grabs Aunt May from the crowd and makes off with her. Venom realizes he can't win this fight in the city, and he says, if you want Aunt May back, come to the place where I saw you for who you truly are. Which means the Osborn Mansion, where he unmasked Spider-Man. MJ says, Peter, please don't hurt him. That thing, that's not who Harry really is. And Peter says, I hope you're right. So instead of a giant unwieldy sand battle in a construction site, we end on something more of a personal note, and hopefully something personal for Sam Raimi, because what I'd really like at this point is a really good horror scene. Because you remember the horror scene from Spider-Man 2 with the arms and it's basically like a slasher film. That was f***ing brilliant, and Sam Raimi playing to his absolute strengths. So how about in the last act, Peter Parker being stalked around the Osborn Mansion by Venom, something living in the shadows. Like a tiny little, very short horror movie scene. So that ends with Venom getting the drop on Spider-Man, and the mansion gets set ablaze. And this weakens Harry because he doesn't know that the suit is vulnerable to fire. Again, Peter bests Harry, pleading with him, please, I didn't kill your father. They're fighting on a balcony, and beneath them the entire lobby, foyer, whatever you call it, the great hall of the mansion is ablaze. You know, this horrible pit of fire. And Venom grabs Aunt May and holds her over the fire in one last desperate attempt to hurt Peter. Peter says, listen, Harry, look what you're about to do. You're about to hurt Aunt May. Harry Osborn wouldn't do that. And then the mask kind of recedes and you see Harry Osborn there, and his features are a little bit changed, a little bit warped by the suit. And Peter says, I didn't kill your father. He killed himself. You have to trust me. And Harry looks into Peter's eyes and they come to an understanding, and Harry says, I do trust you, but I don't trust myself anymore. And he throws Aunt May to Peter, and then he falls into the fire, the symbiote suit dying in the blaze with him. Harry Osborn is dead. The mansion collapses. Nothing is left of the Osborn name. They bury Harry, and Peter carries on as Spider-Man. It's a hard road, but at least this time he has his city and his family fully behind him. And that is how I would have made Spider-Man 3. Do you massively disagree? Feel free to call me a wanker in the comments. Also, if there's a film that you'd like me to cover in a future episode of this, again, let me know. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter here. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and I'll see you soon.